Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to My Husband Cheated on Me for 4 years. My mom advised me to pretend I knew nothing. Following her advice, I endured until his mistress gave birth. It was only a month later that I realized how brilliant her plan truly was. On a sweltering weekend in New York City, crowds flocked to shopping malls, seeking refuge in air-conditioned comfort. I blended into this crowd, not to shop for myself. Long ago, I'd forgotten the habit of treating myself to a new dress or a tube of lipstick. I was here to buy a new shirt for my husband, Kevin. Lately, he'd often complained about work, about stress, saying he needed to meet with partners frequently and maintain a polished image. Hearing this, despite the chill in my soul after 2 years of living like strangers, I still tried to dutifully perform my role as a wife. Our marriage was once very happy. 4 years ago, Kevin and I married with the blessing of both families. He was an elegant man, knew how to speak beautifully, and always knew how to please me. But for the last 2 years, he had changed. Home dinners became rarer. Words of care and attention dried up. He left early, returned late, and the reason was always work. I asked myself, tormented, if I had done something wrong, or if married life inevitably faded over time. I tried to rekindle feelings, cooked his favorite dishes, tried to look more attractive at home, but in return, received only indifference, and sometimes irritation. Gradually, I too grew tired, and a frightening silence reigned in our home. I slowly walked past men's clothing displays, searching for a shirt that would suit Kevin. Suddenly, my gaze caught a familiar silhouette. In the maternity and newborn section across the aisle, stood a tall man in the very khaki-colored polo shirt I had personally ironed that morning. My heart skipped a beat. It was Kevin. There could be no mistake. He wasn't alone. Next to him stood a young woman with a noticeably rounded belly. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Their hands were intertwined. Kevin held a pink maternity dress, trying it against her, smiling tenderly, with that same affection in his gaze I hadn't seen in so long. This scene was like a knife to the heart. Everything around me blurred. The noisy hum of the mall suddenly became distant. I only heard my own heart tearing into pieces. I quickly hid behind a large pillar, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. I didn't know why I was doing it. Perhaps it was just an unconscious reflex, a desire to record this cruel truth. My fingers haphazardly pressed the screen. I took photos and a short video. I saw Kevin embrace the girl's waist. They whispered something, then laughed joyfully. They looked like a real happy family, while I, his lawful wife, was forced to hide here like a thief. They approached the cashier together. Holding my breath, I watched. Kevin pulled out his wallet, and what he handed the cashier stunned me. It was a supplementary credit card I had gotten for him, linked to my main account. He always said his salary went to maintaining important business connections, so I could handle household expenses, and I believed him. I never doubted for a second. It turned out my money wasn't just going to our small family, but also to him building another family on the side. A wave of pain surged into my chest, but strangely, I didn't cry. Perhaps from too much pain, the tears had dried up. I stood rooted to the spot, watching them walk away hand in hand, with bags full of adorable baby clothes. Only when they were gone did I slowly sink to the floor, leaning my back against the cold pillar. I had been systematically and cruelly betrayed. My husband, the man I loved and trusted above all others, had deceived me, and this deception, it seemed, was not just a fleeting affair. I don't remember how I left the mall or drove to my mother's house. All the way home, my mind was a blank, while the image of Kevin tenderly embracing that woman replayed over and over, as if in slow motion. The shirt I had intended to buy for him remained in its paper bag. Now, it seemed like a monstrous irony. Arriving home, I ran into my room, slammed the door, and collapsed onto the bed. Only then did the tears I had so diligently held back pour out in a torrent, hot and bitter. My mother, Eleanor, hearing the commotion, rushed in. Seeing my pathetic state, she didn't ask many questions, but simply sat beside me in silence and began stroking my back. Her hand was warm and steady, as always, offering me the safest refuge. Choking on sobs, I told her everything. My voice broke. I showed her the photos and video I had taken. I thought Mom would be furious, start cursing Kevin, advise me to create a huge scandal. But no, Mom looked at everything. Her face was stone, but her voice remained surprisingly calm. She showed no surprise, as if she had anticipated something like this. She took my hands, wiped away my tears, and said, "Stop, dear, tears won't help your grief. What are you going to do? Go home, make a scene, yell at him? What then?" Divorce. I froze. Divorce. I had never thought of that word. Despite the coldness and pain, I had never contemplated divorcing Kevin. "I don't know, Mom, I'm so confused." Mom sighed, a sigh full of understanding and years of experience. She looked me straight in the eyes. Her voice became firm. "Listen to me, Kate. This has gone too far. It's not just his infidelity anymore. Look, he dared to use your card to buy things for his mistress, and for their future child at that. This means he thinks nothing of you, and he's had a plan for a long time. If you make a scene now, you'll corner yourself. He'll deny everything, or even worse, he'll admit it and immediately force you to divorce. And what will you have in your hands? These few secretly taken photos? That's not enough, dear." Every word my mom said was like a splash of cold water, sobering me up. Indeed, if I revealed everything now, what would I get besides being labeled a hysteric? Kevin would easily deny everything, and I would be the loser. "So what should I do, Mom?" I asked, my voice still trembling. Mom squeezed my hand tighter, imparting an invisible strength. "From this moment on, you must pretend you know nothing. Go home and continue to be the kind, gentle wife. The more you show no suspicion, the faster he'll drop his guard. During this time, you and I will secretly gather evidence. Not just of his infidelity, but also evidence concerning property and money. I suspect it's not just him involved, but his whole family, who are covering for him. We need to find out what he's been secretly doing behind your back these past 2 years. When we have everything, we'll deliver a crushing blow he won't be able to wriggle out of. My daughter cannot suffer like this." Mom's plan both frightened me and gave me hope. Pretending to know nothing when my heart was broken, seeing the traitor every day. It was torture, but Mom was right. Now was not the time for weakness. I had been deceived for too long. It was time to fight for justice myself. I was doing this not only for myself, but for my parents, for everything my family had invested in this marriage. I wiped away my tears, took a deep breath to calm myself. I looked at Mom. My gaze became more determined. "Yes, Mom, I'm listening." "I'll manage." Mom nodded. Satisfaction and compassion flickered in her eyes. She hugged me. "That's my girl. Hang in there, dear. I'm here. Now, there are 2 of us in this war." That evening, I returned to the house I once called home. Kevin was already there. He was sitting in the living room, watching TV. Seeing me, he merely glanced and said indifferently, "Where were you so late?" "I was at Mom's. I bought you a new shirt." I smiled, forcing a smile with all my might. I handed him the bag. Kevin took it, without even bothering to open it, grunted something like, "Uh-huh," and stared back at the screen. His indifference at that moment was my good fortune. He noticed nothing unusual in my eyes, didn't notice how strained my smile was. That night, I lay with my back to him, pretending to sleep. But in the darkness, my eyes were wide open. My war was just beginning. The following days were the longest of my life. Living under the same roof, eating at the same table, sleeping in the same bed with a traitor, it was true torture. Every morning, I still woke early, prepared breakfast, ironed Kevin's shirts, and waited for him every evening, setting the table. I played the role of a caring wife perfectly, without a single word of reproach. A smile never left my lips, but my heart inside had turned to stone. Kevin, it seemed, didn't notice my changes. Or perhaps he was too busy with his new happiness to pay attention to this old wife. The more impeccable my act, the more he dropped his guard. He still left early and returned late, still secretly talked on the phone in the bathroom, still hastily deleted messages. But now, none of his actions escaped my notice. On Mom's advice, I began my own investigation, starting with finances. Before, I had completely trusted Kevin. Every month, he gave me a certain amount for household expenses. The rest, he said, he saved and invested. I never asked about his salary or bonuses. This was my biggest mistake. I started by checking all bank statements from our joint account and my personal one. For the past 2 years, I sat for hours in the study, reconciling every figure, and discovered something strange. Over a year ago, Kevin was promoted. His salary increased by almost half. I knew about this because he once boasted about it to friends on the phone. But the amount he gave me monthly did not increase. In some months, it even inexplicably decreased under the pretext of company difficulties and reduced bonuses. Where did the difference go? I meticulously recorded all the figures, all the suspicious dates in a notebook. The more I calculated, the colder I felt down my spine. The amount that disappeared over 2 years was not small. It would have been enough to buy a modest apartment. Next, I tried to check his phone. This was much harder because Kevin was very cautious. He hardly ever let go of his phone, but a chance still presented itself. One evening, he went to shower and left his phone on his desk. My heart pounded. I quickly locked the room door and took the phone. Fortunately, he hadn't changed the password. I had very little time. I skipped messages and messengers, knowing he would have surely deleted everything, and went straight to contacts. Scanning the list, I found no suspicious female names, but then I stopped at a very strange entry. Partner Riverside Towers. I tapped to view details. It was a number not in his messenger contacts. My intuition told me something was wrong. Why save a partner's number with the name of a residential complex? Riverside Towers was the name of a new, upscale condo building in Tribeca. I hastily photographed the number with my own phone. I also quickly checked his call history. The name Partner Riverside Towers appeared with frightening frequency, sometimes up to 10 calls a day, lasting up to an hour. Calls were especially frequent during lunch or late in the evening. Just then, I heard the shower turn off. I flinched, quickly exited contacts, cleared my recent apps, and put the phone back in its place. A few seconds later, Kevin emerged. My heart was still pounding wildly, but I tried to maintain a calm expression, pretending to read a book. That evening, I told Mom about my findings over the phone. Mom thought for a moment, then said, "Leave that number alone for now. As for Riverside Towers, try going there tomorrow, but be extremely careful. Don't let him spot you." "Yes, Mom, I understand. And regarding the money, keep collecting evidence, print all statements, mark suspicious transactions. Everything needs to be on paper. It will be easier in court later." Hanging up, I felt a surge of strength. The path ahead was thorny, but I was no longer alone. Mom was by my side, guiding my every step. The first clues had appeared, and I knew I was heading in the right direction. The veil of secrecy over Kevin's betrayal was beginning to lift. The next morning, I told Kevin I was going to Mom's for the day and wouldn't be back until evening. He didn't even pay attention. Just nodded for appearance's sake. The more indifferent he was, the easier it was for me to carry out my plan. After Kevin left for work, I drove not to Mom's, but directly to the Riverside Towers condo complex in Tribeca. It was a new, luxurious, and gated community. Security was very strict. Outsiders without a residence card couldn't enter freely. I parked at a cafe across the street, from where the main entrance was clearly visible. I ordered coffee, sat in a secluded corner, and began to wait. Time dragged agonizingly slowly. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Would Kevin come here, or was it just a coincidence? Hundreds of questions swirled in my head. Around noon, a familiar car pulled up to the gates. It was Kevin's car. My heart clenched. He had told me he was going to meet a client in New Jersey, but here he was. His car stopped at the barrier. He swiped a card, and it drove straight into the underground parking. So, it was true. He had an apartment here, or his mistress lived here. My intuition hadn't failed me. I sat in the cafe, clenching my hands. What to do next? I couldn't get inside. I sat a little longer, trying to think of something. I couldn't just sit and wait in vain. I decided to walk around the complex. Maybe I could find some information. I walked along the fence, pretending to be a local resident out for a stroll. Approaching the lobby of Tower B, I saw several delivery drivers. An idea flashed in my head. I approached a young courier, handed him a $50 bill, and quietly said, "Young man, could you help me out? I want to deliver something to a relative in this tower, but I forgot the apartment number. Could you check which apartment belongs to the owner of this phone number?" I dictated the partner Riverside Towers number to him. The courier looked at me suspiciously, then at the bill in my hand, hesitating slightly. I hastily added, "My sister just gave birth. She's become so forgetful. I just want to surprise her. Please help." Hearing this, the guy seemed to believe me more. He nodded, pulled out his phone, and entered the number into his work app. A moment later, he looked up. "Yes, that's right. This number belongs to the owner of apartment B, 1708. Her name is Denise." Denise. A beautiful name, but to me now, it was like a knife blade. B 1708. So, I had a precise address. I thanked the courier, pressed the money into his hand, and quickly left. I returned to my car, feeling both fury and a kind of grim satisfaction. Finally, I knew where this other woman lived. Apartment 1708, Tower B, Riverside Towers. An elite apartment, certainly very expensive. All the salary and bonuses Kevin had hidden from me had probably gone here. He used my money, my hard work, to support another woman, to build another home. I didn't drive home immediately. I sat in my car and looked at that tall, majestic building. I imagined Kevin and his mistress, Denise, now happy together in that cozy apartment upstairs. They were having lunch, talking, preparing together for the arrival of a new life, while I, his lawful wife, sat here alone, swallowing pain and betrayal. A wave of anger rose within me. I wanted to rush upstairs, break down the door of apartment B 1708, and find out everything. But Mom's words echoed in my ears again. "Stay calm. Don't do anything foolish." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to calm my breathing. Not yet. Not yet time. I needed more evidence, irrefutable evidence. That day, I sat in my car until late evening. After 5, I saw Kevin's car leave the parking garage. He left, probably heading home to play the role of an exemplary husband again. I waited a little longer and then started my car too, but I didn't go home. I drove to the office of a private detective agency recommended by a friend. I knew there were things I couldn't do myself. I needed photos, videos of Kevin and her entering and leaving that apartment together. I needed solid proof of their relationship. In this war, I had to win, and win unconditionally. After hiring the detective, I felt temporary relief. At least, I no longer had to tail Kevin myself, which was both dangerous and easily discoverable. I gave them the address of apartment B 1708 and Kevin's daily routine that I knew. All that remained was to wait. All this time, I continued my act. I remained gentle, caring. I even suggested going to the movies on the weekend to rekindle our relationship. Of course, Kevin refused. He said he had an important meeting with partners in another city over the weekend and wouldn't be able to make it. I just smiled and said, "Drive safely, take care." But deep down, I knew perfectly well who his important partner was and where he was. A few days later, Sarah, the wife of Andrew, Kevin's close colleague and direct boss, called me. We had a good relationship. Sometimes we'd go to cafes or shop together. "Kate, hi. Are you free this weekend? Let's go to the spa. You've been looking a bit pale lately." I gladly agreed. I needed to talk to someone to release the tension that was weighing on me. We met at our favorite spa on Saturday afternoon. During the treatments, Sarah suddenly asked, "Kate, I'm going to ask you something. Please don't be offended. Is everything okay between you and Kevin?" I flinched, but tried to remain calm. "Why do you ask? Everything's as usual with us." Sarah looked at me sympathetically and lowered her voice. "It's just that a few times at company events, I noticed Kevin acting strangely. He acts as if he's single. Young female employees are constantly flirting with him, and he not only doesn't mind but gladly encourages it." My heart ached, but I forced myself to smile. "He's probably just joking. Kevin has that kind of personality. He loves to joke around. Sarah sighed, clearly not believing my words. She was silent for a moment, then told me something that shocked me. I heard this story from the guys in his department. They say Kevin told everyone that you two divorced 2 years ago. Now, he's considered the most eligible bachelor in the company. And everyone believes it, because no one has seen you at his office in the last 2 years. He goes to all the parties and outings alone, too. Every word Sarah said was like a hammer blow to my head. Divorced 2 years ago. Eligible bachelor. So, in the eyes of his colleagues, I had long ceased to be his wife. He had created a perfect performance, an intricate web of lies, to cover his double life. He was deceiving not only me, but everyone around him. The pain within me at that moment transformed into boundless rage. He trampled my honor, denied my existence, turned our marriage into a farce. For 2 years, while I created a home and cared for him, he played another role on the side, a role in which he was a successful, free man without any obligations. Seeing me turn pale, Sarah anxiously took my hand. "Kate, are you okay?" Maybe they misunderstood something. I shook my head, forcing a crooked smile. "I'm fine, Sarah. Probably some misunderstanding. I'll ask Kevin when I get home." But I knew there was no misunderstanding here. All of it was true, raw, and cruel truth. It explained everything: his coldness, sudden business trips, indifference to family, because in his mind, that family no longer existed. Leaving the spa, I didn't go home. I aimlessly drove through the city's busy streets. I thought I was mentally prepared for the worst, but this truth still knocked me off my feet. He wasn't just cheating. He wanted to completely erase my existence from his life. That evening, when Kevin returned, I looked at him with different eyes. I looked at the man sitting before me, the person I once loved, my husband, but he seemed utterly alien to me. Who was he? How many different lives had he lived that I hadn't even suspected? I didn't ask him about what Sarah told me. I knew it was useless. He would deny it again, invent some reason. I simply watched his every gesture, every word in silence. And I realized that it was all a lie. His smile, his superficial care, all of it was part of the performance he had staged. That night, I received the first email from the detective agency. The email contained clear photographs. Kevin and his mistress, Denise, holding hands, entering the lobby of Riverside Towers. Kevin carried large bags, and she held his arm tenderly. There were also photos of them together in a supermarket, dining together in an expensive restaurant. They looked so happy, like newlyweds. I looked at each photograph, and my heart no longer felt pain, only emptiness and hatred. I would surely tear his web of lies to shreds with my own hands. The deeper I delved into the investigation, the clearer I understood that Kevin's betrayal wasn't limited to mere feelings. It was like an iceberg, the submerged part of which was far larger and more terrifying. After the shock of Kevin announcing our divorce to his colleagues, I felt a vague uneasiness about the apartment we lived in. This apartment was the result of our joint efforts, but most of the down payment came from my parents. They had given us a substantial sum then, so we could make a significant down payment immediately and take out a mortgage for the rest. It was their gift to me, ensuring their daughter had stable housing and wouldn't have to drift from rental to rental. Kevin had been so grateful then, constantly repeating that he would never forget my parents' kindness. Remembering those words now, I felt only bitterness. One afternoon, under the pretext of cleaning the study, I started looking for documents. I told Kevin I needed to find an old insurance policy to reread some terms. He didn't suspect anything, just grunted something in response. My heart pounded harder when I opened the drawer with real estate documents. All the papers related to the purchase and mortgage were in a brown leather folder. I carefully took out the deed of ownership. I still remembered how happy we were to receive that document. Then, it was a symbol of our home, our future. I turned the pages, carefully reading every line, and then my heart seemed to stop. On the second page, in the section on owners, next to my name and Kevin's, appeared 2 more names, his father's and mother's. 4 names were neatly inscribed and sealed with a red stamp. I was thrown into a cold sweat. What did this mean? Why were his parents' names here? What right did they have to this apartment? I collapsed into the chair, my head spinning. I tried to recall if I had ever signed any documents related to this. Absolutely not. Neither Kevin nor his parents had ever brought up adding their names to the deed. So, where did these two names come from? A feeling of disgust rose in my throat. This was no longer just Kevin's betrayal. This was a meticulously planned conspiracy by his entire family. They treated me like a fool, an outsider in my own home. They secretly, behind my back, turned our joint property, to which my family had made a huge contribution, into the common property of their large family. With trembling hands, I photographed the page with the 4 names and immediately sent it to Mom. A few minutes later, Mom called back. Her voice was full of astonishment and anger. My God, how could this happen? When did they do this? And you didn't even know. I don't know, Mom. I really don't know. I never signed any papers, I sobbed. Mom was silent for a moment, calming herself, then said in a steel voice, Kate, calm down and listen. He definitely tricked you into signing some document, and you didn't notice. Maybe he slipped it into a stack of other papers. These people are too cunning, but don't worry. Hide this document and don't let him know you've discovered everything. I'll take care of the rest. I have an acquaintance whose husband used to work at the county recorder's office. I'll ask them to check the entire history of this apartment. We need to find out if they forged a signature or used some other trick. Mom's words acted like a sedative. Yes, I shouldn't give up now. I had to get to the truth. This betrayal had gone too far. It affected my family, the hard work and love my parents invested in me. They didn't just want to take my husband from me, they wanted to take my home. I would never let them. That evening, Kevin returned with the same serene look, as if nothing had happened. He even asked if I had found the insurance policy. I smiled an icy smile. Found it. I hid it very securely. I looked into his eyes, trying to find something of the man I once loved. But no, only lies and calculation remained. He and his entire family, they had woven a net together to catch me, to take everything from me, but they were wrong. The victim they considered weak would not give up so easily. The apartment document issue hadn't even settled when a new attack followed, this time head-on. One evening, as I was reviewing the collected evidence, a friend request popped up on my phone's messenger from an unknown account. The username was Sunny Ray, the avatar a sunflower. I usually don't accept requests from strangers, but something prompted me to check her page. My heart clenched again. Sunny Ray's page was filled with photos of a happy, pregnant woman, and this woman was none other than Denise, my husband's mistress. Here was a photo of her standing on the balcony of the Riverside Towers apartment against the backdrop of the night city. Here she was sitting in Kevin's car, hand on her belly with a contented smile. And the most painful, a joint photo with Kevin, where she leaned against his shoulder. Both looked at the camera with radiant smiles. The caption beneath the photo read, "Just hoping the baby is born healthy, looking like daddy and loving mommy." My blood boiled. It was an overt provocation. She was deliberately showing me all of this. Before I could decide whether to accept the request, a message arrived. "Hello, Catherine. This is Denise." I stared at the screen. She dared to write to me directly. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. As Mom taught me, I didn't reply, just read. A few seconds later, the next message arrived. "I know you're aware of Kevin's and my relationship. I don't want to hide anything from you. We sincerely love each other. Kevin told me his feelings for you have long faded. He just couldn't find the right moment to tell you." My fingers clenched the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. That tone, simultaneously naive and arrogant, made me want to smash the phone. But I didn't. I knew this was also evidence. I took screenshots of all the messages. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Denise continued her attack. This time, she sent an ultrasound photo. "This is Kevin's and my son, Catherine. He's already 5 months along. He's perfectly healthy. The doctor says he's a spitting image of his daddy." A lump rose in my throat. She was using her unborn child to hit me, the lawful wife, who had no children. For 4 years of marriage, we had also dreamed of a child, but Kevin constantly put it off, saying he wanted to focus on his career. It turned out he didn't not want children. He just didn't want children with me. In the following days, Denise literally terrorized me with messages and photos. One was a photo of Kevin cooking for her, another a video of him stroking her belly and talking to the baby. She boasted about the expensive gifts he bought her, how he promised a happy future. Her goal was crystal clear: to provoke me, to make me lose control, so I would start a scene and demand a divorce myself. Then she would rightfully become the victor. I told Mom about it. Mom, after listening, merely chuckled. This girl is still too green. She thinks these childish tricks can break you. Let her send them. The longer you stay silent, the angrier she'll get. And you just keep taking screenshots, saving them as evidence. In court, all of this will reveal her true face as an arrogant and cunning homewrecker. But it's so hard, Mom. Every time I see her message, I struggle to hold back. Then, imagine you're watching a play whose ending you already know. Calmly observe what other tricks she pulls. The calmer you are, the more control you have, understand? Listening to Mom, I tried to compose myself. I no longer felt pain from Denise's provocations. Instead, I felt pity for her. She rejoiced, thinking she had stolen a good man, a happy family, not realizing she was merely a pawn in Kevin's and his family's game. A man who treated his wife of 4 years so cruelly could one day do the same to her. I didn't reply to the messages and didn't block Denise's account. I remained a silent observer, gathering one piece of evidence after another for the final act. I thought Denise's audacity would be limited to boasting about feelings and pregnancy, but I was wrong. One day, she sent me a message that truly stunned me. I heard from Kevin that your parents gave you very beautiful gold jewelry for your wedding, a family heirloom. Yes, I really like that style too. I suppose when we get married, I'll also ask Kevin to order me exactly the same. I reread the message several times. A feeling of alarm crept into my soul. These jewels were my great-grandmother's priceless heirloom. Mom had given them to me on my wedding day with instructions to cherish them. They held not only material but immense spiritual value, a blessing from my family. Besides me, Kevin, and my parents, no one knew of their existence. Why would Kevin tell his mistress about such a personal item? And why would she mention it now of all times? My intuition told me something was wrong. I rushed to the bedroom, where our safe stood, for storing important documents and valuables. There were 2 keys to the safe. One I had, the other Kevin. With trembling hands, I inserted the key, entered the code. The heavy steel door opened. Inside, it was empty. The red velvet box with the jewelry was gone. The folder with the original apartment documents, too. Only a few savings passbooks in my name and some cash remained. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the floor. They had taken them. Kevin himself had opened the safe and taken my most precious heirloom. He took the apartment documents. He took everything. He didn't just betray my feelings, deceive me with money. He turned out to be a thief in his own home. Tears streamed down my face. This was no longer the pain of a betrayed wife, but a profound wound from having my trust trampled in the cruelest way. I thought that even if he stopped loving me, some respect would remain between us. But no. This act proved that I was nothing to him. All memories, all gratitude, had been ruthlessly discarded by him. I called Mom, my voice breaking with sobs. Mom, after listening, was silent for a long time. I could feel her anger boiling over by her heavy breathing on the other end of the line. All right, they've gone to extremes. They don't just want to leave you with nothing. They want to take absolutely everything that belongs to you. Then Mom suddenly calmed down. Her voice became cold and resolute. Kate, stop crying. Tears won't solve anything now. Listen to me. The fact that they took the documents and jewelry means they've put a noose around their own necks. Remain calm. Pretend you notice nothing. By no means show any sign. Let them rejoice. I have a plan. I didn't understand what Mom was planning, but her calmness transferred to me. I wiped away my tears, forced myself to stand up. Pain turned into hatred. Weakness gave way to an iron will. What they took from me, I would return twofold. In this marriage, I had nothing left to regret. The only thing I wanted now was justice. Justice for myself and for my family. I looked at the empty safe and silently promised, Kevin, You and your family can rejoice. Your fun won't last long. After the shock of the missing heirloom and apartment documents, I, on Mom's advice, gave no sign that I knew everything. I continued to play my role perfectly. Sometimes I felt disgusted with myself. But each time, looking at the empty safe, my hatred flared anew. Meanwhile, Mom began to act. She had an old friend whose husband once worked at the city recorder's office. Although he was retired, he still had connections. Mom approached them for help, tactfully outlining the story, saying only that she wanted to double-check her daughter's apartment documents due to some ambiguities, fearing a mistake. A few days later, Mom's friend called back. The information she provided confirmed our worst fears. Eleanor, I checked everything. Yes, your daughter's apartment deed had your in-laws' names added to it. The documents were filed almost a year ago. Mom, suppressing her anger, asked, "And are there signatures of both, my daughter and her husband, on the documents?" A moment of silence ensued on the other end of the line. Then the answer came. Of course, by law, for changes to be made to the ownership rights of joint marital property, both spouses' personal presence and signatures are required before a notary. A notarized agreement with both Kate's and Kevin's signatures is kept in the archive. Hearing this, Mom understood everything. She thanked her friend and hung up. Her face was stone. That evening, when I arrived, Mom took me to her room and told me everything. Just as I thought. He tricked you into signing the papers, Mom said confidently. I strained my memory. Almost a year ago, what happened that was special? I frowned, and suddenly, a vague memory surfaced. Mom, I remember. Around that time, Kevin brought me a thick stack of papers and asked me to sign them. He said they were documents for a preferential corporate loan for his company's employees for investment in some internal project. He said the procedure was complicated, required many signatures, and he had already marked where I needed to sign. I didn't suspect anything then. Besides, I was rushing to work, so I signed without reading. Mom slammed her palm on the table. My God, that's it. He slipped the consent to add his parents' names to the deed into that stack of papers to trick you. That scoundrel, he and his whole family, had planned every step long ago. The revealed truth filled me with both fury and self-reproach for being so foolish, so trusting. I had personally signed a document, selling my own property, without even knowing it. Their conspiracy was too cunning, too sophisticated. They had used my trust to stab me in the back. What do we do now, Mom? My signature is real. How can I dispute this? I asked with anxiety. Mom looked at me with an unusually perceptive gaze. The signature is genuine, but your intention when signing was fraudulently obtained. This is fraud with the intent to seize property. Don't worry, we won't make a fuss now. Let them think their plan succeeded. We'll gather more evidence of how he tricked you. Do you remember if anyone else was present? Or maybe there are some messages, emails from him about this preferential loan. I shook my head. We were home alone then, and he always talked about important things verbally, rarely texting. Mom pondered. It's nothing. No direct evidence. We'll find circumstantial. Leave it to me. Your task now is to remain perfectly calm. The weaker and more naive you appear, the more overconfident they'll become and make more mistakes. Leaving Mom's, I felt a heavy heart, but at the same time, clarity emerged. My husband's family's conspiracy had been exposed. Now, I was no longer just a bewildered victim. I knew exactly who my enemy was and what their goals were. They wanted everything, and I wouldn't give them anything. In this war, I would fight to the end, not just for property, but for my honor and the justice they had trampled. After Mom and I uncovered the apartment seizure conspiracy, Kevin's family seemed to suspect nothing. They continued to live peacefully, confident that everything was going according to their perfect plan. Perhaps, seeing my silence and submissiveness, Kevin decided to set a new, even bigger trap, targeting my personal savings. Lately, Kevin had drastically changed his attitude. He stopped being cold and indifferent, instead showing unexpected tenderness and care. He started coming home earlier, sometimes bringing me flowers, even began helping around the house. He recalled our early days, spoke of future plans we once built. His act was so flawless that, not knowing his true face, I might have melted and believed he had truly repented. But not I. This sudden change only heightened my vigilance. I knew that behind this sweetness lay an even more bitter scheme, and I didn't have to wait long. One evening after dinner, Kevin brewed me chamomile tea, sat beside me, and with an enthusiastic look said, "Kate, I want to discuss something with you." "What is it, Kevin?" I feigned curiosity. He lowered his voice, feigning secrecy. "My company is currently raising internal funds to invest in a large real estate project in Miami. This is an opportunity only for top managers. Outsiders don't know about it. Guaranteed returns of at least 30% annually. Absolutely safe." I sipped my tea, inwardly smirking. The same old song about internal investments, but I continued to feign interest. "Really? Such high returns? Are there risks?" "Don't worry. The project has been approved at the very top. All legal documents are in order. I've checked everything. It's a sure win. I'm going to invest all my savings, but I'm a little short." He paused then, looking at me meaningfully. I understood the main part of the performance was beginning. "How much are you short?" I calculated. "If we had another $150,000, our investment would be very profitable, with maximum returns. I remember, you have personal savings of roughly that amount, the money your parents gave you." So, his goal was clear. $150,000. This was money my parents gave me for various needs. For a rainy day, I had put them in a savings account and barely touched them. Kevin was well aware of their existence. Seeing my silence, he took my hand and said in a pleading tone, "Kate, I know it's your personal money, but think about it. We're husband and wife. Your money is my money, mine is yours. We'll invest together, then we'll profit together. Then I'll buy you anything you want. We'll travel all over the world to make up for those years when I was too busy with work and didn't give you enough attention." His words were so sweet, so convincing. He painted a beautiful future, playing on a wife's desire to mend relations. If this were me a few months ago, I would probably have given him everything without hesitation. But now, I found it amusing, yet I didn't refuse immediately. I needed to see how he would play next. I pretended to hesitate, but that's a large sum. I need time to think. Kevin immediately feigned understanding. "Of course, think it over carefully, but we need to hurry. Space is limited. Everyone in our company is fighting for them this week alone." In the following days, Kevin constantly pressed me. He sent me confidential project documents, attractive tables with profit calculations. He even asked a colleague to call me disguised as a consultant to confirm the project's reliability and security. Everything was arranged very professionally, without a single flaw. I pretended to be fully convinced. I told Kevin I agreed and arranged with him to go to the bank at the end of the week to withdraw the money and sign the agreement. Kevin was over the moon. He hugged me, thanking me profusely and promising me the world. Looking at his unconcealed triumphant smile, I felt only boundless disgust. The trap was set, but he didn't know that the prey he was hunting was also waiting to spring the trap in return. Friday arrived, the day set for visiting the bank and signing the agreement. That morning, Kevin woke up very early. His face shone with joy. He ironed his best suit, whistling cheerfully. He even came into the kitchen to help me with breakfast, something he hadn't done in 4 years. Looking at him, I knew he was counting the seconds until he got his hands on the $150,000. I was ready too. I put on a simple dress, did light makeup, and didn't forget to take my savings passbook and ID. I had told Mom about Kevin's plan beforehand. Mom just said, "Go with him. I'll take care of everything else." At exactly 9 a.m., Kevin and I walked out to the car. He even gallantly opened the door for me, as tender as in the first days of our acquaintance. On the way to the bank, he talked incessantly about future plans after receiving profits from the investments. "We'll buy a new, bigger car, won't we? And at the end of the year, we'll go to Europe. Which country do you want to visit most?" I just smiled and nodded, thinking to myself that the only trip awaiting him was a journey to the bottom of his own lies. We arrived at the bank. Kevin parked, and we went in together. He acted very professionally, discussing a large withdrawal with the teller. Just as I was about to sign the withdrawal slip, my phone rang. It was Mom's number. I shot Kevin an apologetic glance and answered, "Hello, Mom, what's wrong?" On the other end of the line, Mom's voice was panicked, broken, mixed with sobs. "Kate, Dad. Dad had a stroke. They took him by ambulance. Come to the hospital immediately. The doctors say his condition is critical." My ears rang, even though I knew this was part of Mom's plan. Her voice was so natural that my heart ached. I tried to play my role to the end. "Mom, what did you say?" "Dad? Which hospital?" "Metropolitan General. Come quickly, Kate. I was so scared." I hung up. My face was white as a sheet. My hands and legs trembled. Kevin, seeing this, asked, "What happened? You look utterly distraught." "Dad. Dad had a stroke. He's in the ICU. I need to go there immediately," I said, my voice breaking. Without waiting for Kevin's reaction, I grabbed my bag and documents from the table and rushed out of the bank. Kevin froze for a moment, then darted after me. "Kate, wait, I'll drive you." "No need, I'll get there myself." I pushed his hand away, hailed a waiting taxi, and drove off, leaving Kevin bewildered at the bank doors with the unsigned investment agreement. Sitting in the taxi, I finally exhaled. Mom's performance was flawless. I texted Mom, "I've left." A few seconds later, a reply came. "Excellent. Drive straight to the hospital, to the emergency room. I'll be waiting for you there." I arrived at the hospital and indeed saw Mom sitting on a bench outside the ICU with an equally distraught face. Seeing me, Mom quickly pulled me aside. "Well? Kevin didn't suspect anything?" "No. You acted so well, I even scared myself." Mom exhaled. "That's exactly what we needed, for him to believe it. Now listen, go to the internist's office, say you're dizzy. Let them take your blood pressure, do a couple of simple tests. Stay here until evening. I'll call Kevin and tell him that Dad has passed the crisis, but you fainted from the stress and they kept you under observation. Then he won't suspect anything. And the money? Give me the savings passbook. I'll withdraw them right now and transfer them to another, more secure account. This needs to be done immediately." I nodded and handed Mom the passbook. Watching Mom hurriedly leave, I felt so sorry for her. Because of me, she had to bother so much, worry, plan everything out. I promised myself I would become even stronger, not to let her down, to end this bitter performance as soon as possible. Kevin's fraudulent plan for $150,000 had utterly failed. Not only did he not get the money, but he also sowed even more suspicion in me, strengthening the evidence of his deception. After the failed story with Dad's hospitalization, Kevin became incredibly disappointed and irritable. He stopped playing the caring and sweet husband, reverting to his former cold and distant behavior. He constantly asked me about the $150,000, saying the investment opportunity would soon close, that I had missed a huge chance for our family. I merely cited Dad's illness, saying I couldn't think about money. I needed time to care for him. Besides, hospital and medication expenses were high. I needed to keep that money just in case. Hearing this, Kevin could do nothing but leave angrily. He had no idea that the entire sum had already been transferred by Mom to her account and was completely safe. The failure of the plan seemed to strip Kevin of all patience. He was home less and less often. Sometimes I didn't see him for 2 to 3 days. He said he was on a distant business trip, but I knew he was with that woman in the Riverside Towers apartment. One Sunday, returning from my parents', I felt a strange impulse. I wanted to know what they were doing after the money fiasco, whether they were preparing a new conspiracy. I decided to go to Riverside Towers. I didn't sit in the cafe across the street, as last time. This time, I parked on a small side street nearby and approached on foot. I wasn't going to check if Kevin was home. I just wanted to walk around, see if I accidentally discovered anything. Passing a chic pastry shop on the ground floor of the shopping arcade at the base of Tower B, I saw a familiar scene. Through the large display window, I saw Kevin. He wasn't just with Denise. At the same table, with them sat his father and mother. All four sat at a round table in a very cheerful and warm atmosphere. My mother-in-law was personally peeling an apple and feeding it to Denise. My father-in-law, with a smile, was telling Kevin something, and Kevin sat next to Denise. One of his hands rested on her belly, and with the other, he occasionally gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. They truly looked like a family. A happy, complete family, expecting a new member. I froze outside. Only the glass separated me from them. All sounds around me vanished. I heard neither the cars nor the voices of people. In my eyes, there was only this scene, beautiful and immensely cruel. So, it was all true. All my suspicions were confirmed. Not only Kevin, but his entire family, his parents, whom I once respectfully called Mom and Dad, all of them were aware. Not only did they not dissuade their son, but they happily accepted and even supported this illicit relationship. They conspired against me, together planning the seizure of my property to clear the way for his mistress and their future grandchild, a family conspiracy against me. In their eyes, I was merely an obstacle, a splinter to be removed. Years of respect as a daughter-in-law, my care and attention, all of it held no value for them. The pain in my chest was no longer from betrayed love, but from trampled familial feelings. I once thought that perhaps my in-laws didn't know, that they too were victims of Kevin's deceit. But no, they were accomplices. They were the orchestrators of it all. I didn't cry. My tears had long dried up. I just stood and watched them laugh and talk, how tenderly they cared for their new daughter-in-law. I silently pulled out my phone and photographed this moment. This photograph, along with all the other evidence, would become my weapon. I turned and walked away, never looking back. From that second, not a drop of affection or hope remained in my heart. This war was no longer just between me and Kevin. It was a war between me and his entire family, and I definitely wouldn't lose. The photograph, capturing Kevin's family idyll with his mistress, became a poison that killed the last vestiges of feeling in me. But at the same time, it became a stimulant, making me tougher and more resolute than ever. Mom and I understood that we could no longer passively defend ourselves. We needed to attack, to thoroughly study their plan to stay one step ahead. But how to find out what they were thinking? The idea came to Mom one morning, an idea so bold that I was stunned. "I'm going to check myself into the hospital," Mom said in a perfectly calm voice. "What, Mom? You're not sick. If it doesn't hurt, we'll pretend it does," Mom winked at me. "Don't you know the hospital is the best place to gather information? People there are vulnerable. They open up easily, especially women. Who knows, we might get lucky." Mom's plan seemed absurd, but after thinking it over, I realized it made sense. It was a risky move, but in our situation, such moves were necessary. Mom had a history of hypertension. It was enough to complain about a headache and dizziness to be admitted for a few days of observation. And so, Mom found herself in the hospital again, at the same Metropolitan General, where she had already staged the stroke performance. She was placed in a 4-bed ward. Mom quickly displayed her diplomatic talents. In one morning, she met and befriended 2 wardmates. She brought fruit, treated everyone, asked about their ailments, and told cheerful stories to encourage them. And luck smiled upon us in the most unexpected way. In the afternoon, a new patient was brought to the last empty bed. More accurately, she came to care for her husband, who had been hospitalized with kidney stones. She was a woman about Mom's age, plainly dressed, with a kind face. Upon acquaintance, Mom learned her name was Valerie Jenkins. They quickly started talking about children, family, age-related concerns. Mom, following the plan, began to complain about her ungrateful son-in-law, without mentioning Kevin's name or mine. She only said that her daughter married a scoundrel and was suffering greatly. Valerie Jenkins, hearing this, expressed much sympathy. She patted Mom on the shoulder, comforting her, and also began to tell about her own family to share. "Oh, I understand you. My own niece, Denise, also had bad luck with her personal life, but now, thank God, she met a good guy, a department head at a big company, both handsome and smart. He'll soon leave his wife to marry my niece." Hearing the name Denise, Mom flinched, but not a muscle moved on her face. She feigned surprise. "Oh, really? How lucky for your niece. And why is he leaving his wife? Is something wrong with her?" Valerie Jenkins, apparently considering Mom a kindred spirit with similar problems, decided to unburden herself. She leaned closer to Mom and whispered, as if revealing a state secret. "Oh, it's a mess there. His wife is old and barren. So many years married, and her womb is empty, and his parents are waiting for a grandson, an heir. Fortunately, my Denise turned out to be a smart girl. She's already carrying a boy. His parents dote on her. They all went to a restaurant together recently. His future mother-in-law was spoon-feeding her." Mom memorized every word Valerie Jenkins said. She continued to ask, "And when will they get married?" "Well, first, we have to wait for the boy to be born. Mine's due soon. Kevin, that's his name. He said as soon as the son is born, there'll be a reason to divorce immediately. With the apartment and property, his parents have already sorted everything out, and his ex-wife will only have to pack her bags and leave. It's her own fault. She has a bad temper and can't have children." Valerie Jenkins spoke with pride, not realizing she was telling all this to the mother. Mom, after listening, barely suppressed the storm raging inside her, but outwardly remained sympathetic. "Well, it's hard for a woman without a son in our time. Anyway, congratulations to your niece." That evening, when Valerie Jenkins fell asleep, Mom went into the hallway and called me. She recounted the entire conversation, not missing a single detail. I listened, trembling with anger. So, their entire plan was revealed. They were waiting for the baby to be born to use him as a trump card, to corner me and legally take everything from me. I understand everything. Mom's voice on the other end of the line was icy. They want to play openly. Well, we'll play with them. Let them rejoice. Let the child be born. That will be the moment the curtain falls. After that, time passed in tense silence. Mom and I knew their plan, and Kevin's every action was predictable. He was home less and less often, and each of his visits brought with it a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. He no longer had the patience to pretend. Rudeness seeped into every glance, into every word. The detective agency regularly sent reports. Denise's belly grew larger. The due date approached. Kevin drove her to shops for baby clothes, to doctor's appointments, cared for her like a devoted husband. Looking at these photos, I no longer felt pain, only boundless contempt. And then that day arrived. On Monday morning, Kevin hurriedly packed his bags. He told me in an unusually cheerful voice, "Kate, I urgently need to go on a business trip to Miami for a few days. An important contract needs to be signed. You take care of yourself here, okay?" "Yes, drive safely." I smiled, packed his suitcase myself, ironed a few shirts, playing the role of a caring wife to the end. He briefly hugged me and hastily drove off. Watching his car disappear beyond the gates, the smile vanished from my face. I knew perfectly well what important contract awaited him. Less than an hour later, I received a message from the detective. Subject did not proceed to airport. Arrived at New Hope Maternity Hospital. Attached to the message was a photo of Kevin's car in the hospital parking lot. That entire day, I felt as if I were watching a live movie. Updates constantly poured in with photos and messages. Kevin and his parents sat in the waiting area, before the delivery ward. Their faces expressed both anxiety and impatience. A few hours later, a new photo arrived. Kevin holding a tiny, red infant in his arms. His face radiated happiness. His parents stood nearby, smiling endlessly. Their gazes were fixed on their grandson, their pride unconcealed. The message read, "Boy, 7 pounds, mother and baby healthy." So, his son was born, the child his whole family had waited for. The trump card in their plan had appeared. The next few days, Kevin spent at the hospital. He lied to me that there were problems in Miami, and he needed to stay a few more days. Every evening he called me, complaining in a tired voice about being busy, about endless meetings. "I'm so tired, Kate. I want to finish everything quickly and come back to you." I listened to these lies over the phone, simultaneously looking through the photos the detective had sent. Photos of Kevin himself preparing formula for the baby. Photos of him clumsily changing a diaper. Photos of him peeling apples for Denise. Photos of his entire family gathered around her bed, laughing and talking cheerfully. This cruel contrast no longer hurt me. It only strengthened my resolve. I still replied gently, "You're so tired." Take care of yourself. I'm waiting for you at home. Every word I spoke was like a needle piercing his lies. Though he didn't know it, he was reveling in fatherhood, drowning in happiness with his new family, unaware that every one of his actions, every deceitful word, was being meticulously recorded, awaiting its moment to come to light. A week after his business trip to Miami, Kevin returned home. He tried to look tired from work, but couldn't hide the joy shining in his eyes. He brought me a box of key lime pie, saying it was a gift from Miami. I took it, smiled, thanked him, and inwardly chuckled at his clumsy performance. Mom and I knew that now that the baby was born, they would soon begin to act. Their next target, after the apartment and my personal savings, was definitely the remaining money in our joint account. This was money we had saved in the early years of our marriage. The sum wasn't huge, but it was significant. I couldn't let them take this last bit too. We need to act before they do, Mom said resolutely. I immediately contacted my cousin, Maria, who worked as a department head at the very bank branch where we had our joint account. I met her in a quiet cafe and told her my whole story. Maria, after listening, was furious. My God, are there really such families in the world? Don't worry, Kate. I'll help you. You're the account holder. You have every right to withdraw the money. We need to do it tomorrow. The next morning, I went to the bank to meet Maria. I brought all the necessary documents. Using a pre-arranged cover story, I told the tellers I needed to withdraw the entire sum from the account for Dad's surgery after his recent stroke. It was an entirely plausible reason. No one could doubt it. With Maria's help, all procedures went quickly and smoothly. The entire sum from the joint account was withdrawn. I immediately went to another bank and deposited all the money into my mom's account. Only holding the receipt for the successful transaction could I finally breathe. The last financial fortress had been built. Now Kevin and his family couldn't touch a single dollar of mine. And indeed, just a few days later, Kevin brought up the money. He said Denise was very weak after childbirth, and a large sum was needed for her recovery and childcare. He suggested withdrawing money from the joint account. I simply replied calmly, I already withdrew all the money from the joint account for Dad's treatment. Don't you remember? He urgently needed surgery. It's very expensive. Kevin, hearing this, froze. His face changed. He hastily pulled out his phone to check the account. Seeing that the balance was only a few $100s, his face darkened. He gritted through his teeth. Why did you withdraw the money without consulting me? I looked him straight in the eyes. My voice was icy. And why did you use my credit card to buy things for your mistress, without asking me? Why did you secretly take my heirloom, the apartment documents, without saying a word? My father was in the hospital, on the verge of death. I used our shared money to save him. What's wrong with that? This was the first time I had openly defied him. Kevin was utterly stunned by my retort. He stammered something incoherent, because everything I said was true. He angrily slammed the table and left, throwing over his shoulder. You'll get what's coming to you. I knew the day of his official attack was close, but I was no longer afraid. I was ready. Everything was ready. I waited for him to open the final scene of this play himself. As I had expected, after he failed to get a single dollar from the joint account, Kevin's patience ran out. He no longer wanted to waste time on me. The moment his entire family had been waiting for had finally arrived. The baby was a month old. They probably thought that with the heir in hand, they had already won. That evening, Kevin returned home earlier than usual. He didn't eat dinner, just sat in the living room, smoking one cigarette after another. The atmosphere in the house was oppressive, like before a storm. I, having finished my tasks, also sat in an armchair opposite him, silently waiting. When the last cigarette was extinguished, Kevin looked up at me. His gaze was cold, emotionless. We're getting a divorce. 4 words, spoken so evenly, as if he were talking about the weather. I showed no surprise. I had been waiting for that phrase for a very long time. What did you say? I didn't quite hear you, I asked calmly, though my heart still ached. He lost patience and barked. I said, we're getting a divorce. You don't understand. There's nothing left between us. I have another woman, and we have a son together. It's time for us to free each other. With these words, he pulled a stack of pre-prepared papers from his briefcase and threw them onto the table in front of me. These are the divorce, petition, and property settlement agreement. I've already signed. Read and sign. I took the papers. My hands weren't shaking. I scanned the terms. They were worse than I could have imagined. He was offering me a compensation of $25,000, so to speak, for my wasted youth. In return, I was to immediately vacate this apartment and waive all rights to any other property. Regarding the apartment, he wrote clearly, "This is joint property of him and his parents, therefore I have no right to its division." Reading it, I raised my eyes to him, and a smirk appeared on my lips. He thought, "I'm still the same fool as before." $25,000. Do you think 4 years of my married life, 4 years I invested in this home, my parents' hard work? All of this is only worth $25,000. Kevin twisted his lips into a contemptuous sneer. Don't be so greedy. $25,000 is what I'm offering you out of kindness. My parents' names are on the apartment documents. You have no rights. If you don't sign, fine. In court, you'll get nothing more, only disgrace yourself. He was so confident because he thought all the evidence was on his side. He thought I knew nothing of his family's dirty schemes. He expected me to cry, beg, or make a scene, but I did none of that. I gently placed the petition on the table. I looked him straight in the eyes and said in a surprisingly calm voice, "All right, I'll sign." Kevin froze. My reaction was completely unexpected for him. He didn't expect me to agree so easily. You're serious?" "Serious." I nodded. "But before I sign, I have one small request." "What kind of request?" he asked suspiciously. I smiled, a smile he would probably never forget. "The celebration for your son's birth. Where will it be held? Can I come? After all, I'm still your lawful wife. I want to see the baby, and also say goodbye to your family and friends before we officially end things." My request confused Kevin. He didn't understand what I was up to, but perhaps, seeing that I agreed to the divorce so quickly, he decided it was just a harmless whim from a defeated woman. After thinking, he nodded. "All right. This Sunday at 7 p.m. in the VIP room of the Grand Ballroom at the Astor Hotel. Come, but no tricks." "Don't worry," I replied, still smiling. "I'll just come to congratulate." Kevin didn't know that he had just personally sent me an invitation to the premiere of a film about his own deceitful life, and I would be the director of that film. The last week of our shared life passed in oppressive silence. Kevin was hardly ever home. He was busy preparing for the lavish celebration in honor of his son, which was probably also his family's victory celebration. And Mom and I put all our energy into our gift. We sat together late into the nights, reviewing every photograph, listening to every audio recording, piecing together all the evidence collected over the past months. From the first snapshots in the mall, the detective's reports, Denise's provocative messages, to the copy of the altered apartment deed, and that very photo of their family idyll in the cafe. All of this was edited into a 10-minute video with a musical score that was sometimes lyrical, sometimes tense, like a documentary film hiding the truth. Mom carefully added short, biting subtitles so no one could misinterpret the context. We named this masterpiece The Happy Family. On Sunday evening, I stood before the mirror. Reflected. There was no longer the tired, pale Kate. I chose a luxurious wine-colored silk dress. I applied bold makeup, accentuating my eyes and lips with crimson lipstick. I came not as a discarded wife. I came as a person demanding justice. Mom also wore an elegant black velvet dress. She took my hand. Her gaze was both sympathetic and resolute. "Let's go, dear. It's time to drop the curtain." The Grand Ballroom at the Astor Hotel glittered with lights that evening. The VIP room was lavishly decorated with balloons and flowers. Kevin, in an elegant suit, stood at the entrance, greeting guests alongside his parents. They looked radiant, with contented smiles on their faces. Denise, in a pristine white evening gown, sat at the main table with the baby in her arms. Relatives and friends crowded around them, admiring and congratulating. Mom and my appearance momentarily disrupted the atmosphere. Kevin and his parents looked at us with clear irritation and wariness, but before the guests, they had no choice but to force strained smiles. "You came?" Kevin approached. His voice sounded like a warning. "I promised, didn't I?" I smiled back, and with Mom, calmly walked into the hall, ignoring the curious glances and whispers behind our backs. The celebration proceeded as planned. After my father-in-law's solemn speech thanking the guests, the host invited everyone to look at the large screen, where a video of cute moments from the baby's life was supposed to begin. It was at this moment that I stood up. I approached the stage and took the microphone from the stunned host. All eyes in the hall turned to me. Kevin and his family blanched, preparing to rush the stage to stop me. "I apologize for the interruption," I said. My voice was loud, clear, and calm. "I am Catherine, Kevin's lawful wife. Today, on this joyous day for the family, I also have a small gift, a special video that I want to present to my husband, his family, and, of course, Miss Denise. Consider this my blessing for their new chapter in life." Saying this, I signaled to the sound engineer, whom Mom had hired in advance. The lights in the hall dimmed, the large screen lit up, the happy family video began. The first frame: Kevin tenderly choosing clothes for Denise in the mall. Subtitle: March. My husband says he left to meet with partners, then a series of photographs. He and Denise entering and leaving the Riverside Towers apartment, dining together, shopping. Then a scene where his entire family cheerfully dotes on Denise in the cafe. Subtitle: Family Conspiracy. Denise's arrogant messages in close-up, a copy of the apartment deed with 4 names, enlarged to fill the entire screen. And finally, footage from the hospital, Kevin happily holding his baby in his arms while lying to me that he was on a business trip to Miami. The entire hall froze. First, there was silence, then whispers, and then open discussions. People turned and looked at Kevin's family with unconcealed astonishment. Kevin's face turned from white to crimson. He yelled, "Turn it off! Turn this garbage off!" Immediately, and rushed the stage, trying to snatch the microphone from me. But it was too late. The video ended with a frame showing the divorce petition, with $25,000 compensation. And the final subtitle: "This is the price for 4 years of my youth and everything I created." The lights in the hall came on. Chaos erupted. Screams, Denise's hysterical crying, my mother-in-law's cursing. Guests began to hastily disperse, casting disdainful glances. The celebration had turned into a tragicomedy. Amidst this chaos, Mom and I calmly exited the hall. I didn't look back. I didn't need to see their pathetic faces. I had done what I had to do. The show was over. And this was only the beginning of justice. The storm Mom and I unleashed at the Grand Ballroom at the Astor Hotel proved more destructive than we expected. That very night, videos of the chaos at the celebration and detailed accounts from guests began to spread on social media with furious speed. The true face of eligible bachelor Kevin and his respectable family was revealed to the whole world. Of course, they couldn't sit idly by. Cornered, they launched a counterattack, dirty and vile. Early the next morning, while I was still asleep, furious pounding on the door and shouts erupted. I looked through the peephole and saw Kevin with his parents. Their faces were contorted with malice. I knew this was inevitable. I called Mom and my lawyer, then opened the door. Barely seeing me, my mother-in-law lunged forward, raising her hand to slap me. "You wretch! You disgraced our entire family! You want to die!" I had anticipated this and managed to step back, dodging the blow. Kevin and his father-in-law also hurled vulgar insults and threats at me. They shouted that I had fabricated everything, that out of blind jealousy I had staged this spectacle to destroy their reputation. This altercation, or rather their one-sided tirade, only stopped with the arrival of my mother and lawyer. The appearance of outsiders forced them to temper their fury. The lawyer calmly demanded that they leave my home, otherwise he would call the police for trespassing and threats. Realizing they would achieve nothing, they left with curses. But this was only the beginning. Unable to deal with me openly, they began to strike covertly. A few days later, posts slandering me began to appear in neighborhood groups and on social media. They hired people to write a completely different story. In this story, I was a promiscuous wife who didn't care for her family and spent money left and right. They wrote that I couldn't have children, and therefore, out of envy, destroyed someone else's happiness. They even fabricated that I was the first to cheat. Kevin caught me, and to defend myself, I decided to attack first. This brazen lie and malicious comments spread everywhere, to turn me from a victim into a culprit. But they didn't stop there. They resorted to even baser methods. My apartment door was doused with red paint, and trash was left under the door. Neighbors started looking at me differently. Whispers were heard behind my back. I found myself practically isolated in my own home. Those days were very difficult. Despite being mentally prepared, I felt tired and hurt by these dirty attacks. Sometimes I wanted to give up everything, but each time Mom was there. Daughter, don't give up. The more they do this, the clearer it is that they're scared. They have no arguments left, so they resort to such filth. Our task is to remain calm and collect evidence of their slander and threats. The court doesn't believe internet rumors. The court only believes evidence. Mom's words gave me strength. I listened to her and didn't engage in online skirmishes. I silently took screenshots of all the defamatory posts, photographed the defaced door. All of this was passed on to my lawyer. The legal battle had begun, and I knew it would be long. But there was no turning back. I had to go to the end, to reclaim not only my property, but also my honor and the honor of my family. The legal battle proved longer and more exhausting than I had imagined. Kevin's legal team constantly put forth false arguments, trying to portray my evidence as the result of editing and the fantasies of a jealous woman. The smear campaign against me online never ceased. The pressure from society and neighbors was immense. Although my lawyer was very good and assured me that we would win, I still sometimes felt fear and uncertainty. At the most tense moment, Mom once again became my salvation. One evening, as we were reviewing the case documents, Mom suddenly froze. Her eyes lit up, as if she had remembered something extremely important. Kate, the smart speaker. Which speaker, Mom? I asked, bewildered. The one I gave your father-in-law for his birthday last year. The gray one you can control with your voice, play music. He doesn't understand technology. He only listened to news on it. But I remember that such speakers have an automatic recording function for conversations around them to improve user experience. What if? Hope flared within me, but then immediately died down. But how do we get it, Mom? They definitely won't give it to us. Mom smiled mysteriously. Leave that to me. The next day, Mom gathered a large basket of fruit and an expensive box of ginseng. She said she would go to the in-laws to talk things over. One last time. I wanted to go with her, but Mom insisted she go alone. As expected, they initially didn't want to let her in, but Mom started to cry, saying that, after all, they used to be one family. And before the children permanently separated in court, the adults needed to talk to avoid gossip. Probably out of a desire to save face, they let her in. Inside, Mom didn't talk about divorce. She merely lamented fate, then cleverly steered the conversation to her father-in-law's health. You look tired, probably worrying a lot. By the way, I remembered that smart speaker I gave you. Is it working okay? I heard the manufacturer is recalling that batch for a free firmware update. Maybe I should pick it up and take it to the service center? The father-in-law, not understanding technology and exasperated by the whole situation, immediately agreed. Yes, take it. That thing keeps glitching. It's just annoying. The mother-in-law suspected something, but Mom quickly added, yes, I'll take it for repair, and then I'll buy you a new, better one. Consider it my last sign of respect. Hearing about a new, better one, she remained silent. Thus, Mom successfully returned with the treasure. We immediately called my cousin, who was excellent with technology. He tinkered a bit, connected the speaker to the computer. A list of audio files appeared on the screen. Holding our breath, we began to listen. Mostly, it was news, music, and insignificant snippets of conversations. When we had almost despaired, one recording made us freeze. It was made about a month ago, in the evening, right after Kevin proposed divorce to me. Kevin's and his father's voices were clear. She agreed to the divorce too easily. Doesn't she have some kind of plan? This was the father-in-law's voice. Kevin's voice, full of smugness. What kind of plan could she have? Your names are on the apartment documents. We've almost extorted her personal savings. I've securely hidden her heirloom. She has no evidence. We'll wait until our boy turns a month old, and then throw her out. A barren woman deserves nothing but to leave empty-handed. The father-in-law chuckled. Good thing you thought to slip that paper for her to sign along with the loan documents back then. She's a real fool, trusts you at your word. Signed it without even reading. We froze. There it was, the main evidence. A confession recorded in their own words. It confirmed the entire conspiracy, the fraud, the plan to seize property. With trembling hands, I copied the file to a USB drive. Tears streamed down my cheeks again, but this time, they were tears of relief and hope. Their dirty war, slander, despicable tricks. All of this would end in the face of this irrefutable evidence. Justice was now close. On the day of the final court hearing, the atmosphere in the courtroom was extremely tense. Kevin's legal team constantly put forth false arguments, trying to portray my evidence as the result of editing and the fantasies of a jealous woman. The smear campaign against me online never ceased. The pressure from society and neighbors was immense. Although my lawyer was very good and assured me that we would win, I still sometimes felt fear and uncertainty. At the most tense moment, Mom once again became my salvation. One evening, as we were reviewing the case documents, Mom suddenly froze. Her eyes lit up, as if she had remembered something extremely important. Kate, the smart speaker. Which speaker, Mom? I asked, bewildered. The one I gave your father-in-law for his birthday last year. The gray one you can control with your voice, play music. He doesn't understand technology. He only listened to news on it. But I remember that such speakers have an automatic recording function for conversations around them to improve user experience. What if? Hope flared within me, but then immediately died down. But how do we get it, Mom? They definitely won't give it to us. Mom smiled mysteriously. Leave that to me. The next day, Mom gathered a large basket of fruit and an expensive box of ginseng. She said she would go to the in-laws to talk things over one last time. I wanted to go with her, but Mom insisted she go alone. As expected, they initially didn't want to let her in, but Mom started to cry, saying that, after all, they used to be one family. And before the children permanently separated in court, the adults needed to talk to avoid gossip. Probably out of a desire to save face, they let her in. Inside, Mom didn't talk about divorce. She merely lamented fate, then cleverly steered the conversation to her father-in-law's health. You look tired, probably worrying a lot. By the way, I remembered that smart speaker I gave you. Is it working okay? I heard the manufacturer is recalling that batch for a free firmware update. Maybe I should pick it up and take it to the service center? The father-in-law, not understanding technology and exasperated by the whole situation, immediately agreed. Yes, take it. That thing keeps glitching, it's just annoying. The mother-in-law suspected something, but Mom quickly added, yes, I'll take it for repair, and then I'll buy you a new, better one. Consider it my last sign of respect. Hearing about a new, better one, she remained silent. Thus, Mom successfully returned with the treasure. We immediately called my cousin, who was excellent with technology. He tinkered a bit, connected the speaker to the computer. A list of audio files appeared on the screen. Holding our breath, we began to listen. Mostly it was news, music, and insignificant snippets of conversations. When we had almost despaired, one recording made us freeze. It was made about a month ago, in the evening, right after Kevin proposed divorce to me. Kevin's and his father's voices were clear. She agreed to the divorce too easily. Doesn't she have some kind of plan? This was the father-in-law's voice. Kevin's voice, full of smugness. What kind of plan could she have? Your names are on the apartment documents. We've almost extorted her personal savings. I've securely hidden her heirloom. She has no evidence. We'll wait until our boy turns a month old, and then throw her out. A barren woman deserves nothing but to leave empty-handed. The father-in-law chuckled. Good thing you thought to slip that paper for her to sign along with the loan documents back then. She's a real fool, trusts you at your word. Signed it without even reading. We froze. There it was, the main evidence, a confession recorded in their own words. It confirmed the entire conspiracy, the fraud, the plan to seize property. With trembling hands, I copied the file to a USB drive. Tears streamed down my cheeks again. But this time, they were tears of relief and hope. Their dirty war, slander, despicable tricks. All of this would end in the face of this irrefutable evidence. Justice was now close. On the day of the final court hearing, the atmosphere in the courtroom was extremely tense. Kevin's legal team continued to confidently present his arguments, trying to portray my evidence as the result of editing and the fantasies of a jealous woman. Kevin and his family sat opposite, with smug faces, confident of their victory. When it seemed the case was heading for an unfavorable outcome for me, my lawyer smiled and asked the court for permission to present the final piece of evidence. It's an audio recording, Your Honor. A recording that will shed light on the true nature of this case. The USB drive was inserted into the court's audio system. Silence fell in the courtroom, and then the very conversation between Kevin and his father began to play. Every word about the conspiracy, about the fraudulent signature, about the plan to take everything from me and throw me out onto the street. Everything was revealed in the most blatant way. Kevin's and his father's faces changed from smug to astonished, and then turned white as paper. My mother-in-law in the back row sat with her mouth agape. They looked at each other, then at the smart speaker that my lawyer held in his hand as physical evidence. They couldn't believe that their own overconfidence and cunning had dug their grave. The recording ended, but the silence in the courtroom continued. The judge looked at Kevin with a stern gaze. All denials were now pointless. The final verdict was delivered. The agreement to add the husband's parents' names to the deed of ownership was declared invalid due to fraud. The apartment was recognized as joint marital property, and since most of the funds for its purchase were provided by my family, and also considering the moral and material damages inflicted upon me, I was granted full ownership rights to it. Kevin not only received nothing, but was also ordered to pay me a substantial compensation for moral damages, humiliation of honor and dignity, as well as the value of the family heirlooms he had stolen. Justice prevailed. That day, walking out of the courthouse, I felt boundless relief. The exhausting war was over. I had won. The subsequent days became a time of downfall for Kevin's family. Due to the scandal, he was fired from his position as department head. With a ruined reputation, he couldn't find another good job. Denise, seeing that her beloved had transformed from an eligible bachelor into an unemployed debtor, took the child without hesitation and disappeared, cutting off all contact. Kevin lost everything: his career, money, family, and even the mistress for whom he had risked everything. And I felt no schadenfreude. I only felt peace. I sold that old apartment, full of bad memories. With the proceeds and compensation, I bought a smaller, cozy, and bright apartment for myself and Mom. The broken marriage took much from me, but also taught me a valuable lesson. It taught me to be strong, to defend myself, and most importantly, to love myself. I was no longer that naive, weak girl. I decided to spend a portion of the remaining money on something meaningful. I founded a small nonprofit organization called Rebirth, which provides free legal and psychological assistance to women in similar situations. I wanted to use my story, my experience, to help others, so that no one else would suffer the pain and helplessness I had gone through. One evening, standing on the balcony of my new apartment and looking at the bustling crowd below, I felt absolute freedom and serenity. The past was behind me. I had risen from the ashes of my marriage. A new life with new meaning opened its arms wide to me.